Everyone, welcome back to Raising Consciousness. And today I'm bringing you an episode with Danny and Matthews, who is the founder of Danny&Co, award-winning design agency. And we actually sit down to talk about workplace culture. So there's been a few episodes on the show where we spoke about heart-centered leadership, and we've got a few coming up around kindness as well. But in today's episode, we really dive into the culture that Danny is building at his organization, which is very unorthodox, very unconventional, and I'm really excited to be bringing this episode to you. So with that said, let's hop on over into today's episode and talk culture with Danny. Welcome to Raising Consciousness with me, Lou Burrows, where raising human consciousness happens. On this show, I'm joined by guests to cover a range of topics and have conversations that will raise human consciousness for current and future generations. Now, let's dive into today's show. Welcome everyone to today's episode. I'm joined by my good friend Danny as we in this episode of Raising Consciousness, bring more awareness to sustainability. I want to focus there on this episode, especially for businesses. I know that's something that you're really passionate about. But before we dive into the conversation, let everyone know who is Danny, and then we're diving into it.
Well, that can be a dangerous question. Who's Danny? My name is Danny Matthews, and as far back as I can remember, I wanted to be a designer. I went to an all-boys secondary school. There was also a sports college. And when you go to a sports college, you don't really have the support and the encouragement to do a creative career. You're either a rugby player or a footballer. That's kind of vision. A rugby, actually. Yeah, for a short period. And ended up in American football, actually. So I played for Coventry and Birmingham. I did a little bit of training in Swindon. And I really wanted to be a designer, but there wasn't really that pathway for me. So I ended up, like most people, just getting a job and going into industry. Ended up in financial services and insurance and mortgages. And ended up building a proof of concept for the mortgage industry to help brokers and advisors to get information digitally through an online application. And that was a really big project for me. It was a great transition to working with developers and designers and figuring out how they link together. And a big episode of burnout left me on the floor in central London, and I made a decision at that point to do what I really wanted to do. It was one of the best decisions I ever made. And now I'm really fortunate to run my studio and design every day. And really my life consists of designing things for a purpose and doing stuff like it. Yeah. And that's what I really want to do. So I'm really grateful and really I have a lot of gratitude for the work I put in to get to this stage. And now I can focus. It's funny when you fulfill what you want, it's really easy to then go out and help others because number one's taken care of. It's almost like the aeroplane mask analogy. So now I really focus on making an impact, and I'm sure we'll go into that point.
Absolutely. So when was that burnout for you? How many years ago?
It was 4 or 5 years ago. It wasn't that long. It doesn't feel like that long ago, but it also feels like such a long time ago considering what I've managed to do in between. It was a big deal. It was, I lost feeling from the waist down and purely from stress, and just fell to the floor. And it took about 2 months, I think, to recover from it properly.
I know one of the big things for you and your team is like that culture. So is that one thing that you try and implement within your culture? Is like, man, people don't get to that stage of when they're burning out, whether they're, they come to work doing work that they enjoy and can do their best work and leave it at the end of the day feeling fulfilled in, ultimately what they do. Is that something that's at the core of?
Yeah, I mean, we must try to not force it, but we've tried to build. Like, I don't think that you can really force culture or build culture. I think people try too hard to build culture. Culture is just a byproduct of having some really good frameworks and policies and processes in place. So me and the team got together and decided what are these things that we need to do to help us evolve a culture. And we came up with this thing called the Culture Navigator, and it's basically 12 principles of how we work. Now, for a lot of people, it will seem very bizarre what is on there because it's my crazy idea of how I think work should be. So there's things on there like every day is a Saturday. And the idea behind that is that if you wake up on a Saturday and you had to work, how would you structure your day? And it's very likely that you would wake up in the morning, you'd get ready, you'd maybe have a coffee or have breakfast, you'd get the work done, and then you'd spend the rest of the day doing whatever the hell you wanted. Now imagine that was every day. And if you treat that as your work, then life is surely to be more fulfilled. So there's 12 principles, and the most important one is number 12. And that is that you must call out anyone at any level in the company that does not follow those 12 principles. So, and that gives permission for the most junior member of staff to tell the most senior member of staff that they're not sticking to those guidelines or that, and how we build our culture. And that's been really important for us.
So one thing you said was, you got with your team and kind of decided on these 12. So when you hire new people, like, how does that process work?
It's just an education process, part of onboarding, that it's very, very likely it starts way before they're hired. So it starts with the job description. It starts with the email that they get to introduce them to who's going to be interviewing them and why they're going to be sitting in front of them or sitting in front of the screen or how that's going to work. And they're told about it straight away. So essentially we're attracting people that want that culture already and they understand. There's a lot in the Culture Navigator that leads to responsibility because the people in our business can work when they want, where they want, as long as the work is done. And that is really important for us to keep that as a core principle again. So they're introduced to that from day one, from the job description, right from the beginning. So when they get to interview stage, they'll either have questions or they'll understand it and just want to get on with it. So we hire based on them understanding that it's their responsibility to get the results and get the job done. And we don't care if they're sitting in a coffee shop or on a beach in Maui or, it doesn't matter, right? As long as we get the results, that's the most important thing.
Have you had anyone, either past employees or in it, that you've had to deal with that have kind of, I would say, neglected that? Because if you give somebody, some people maybe sometimes give them that amount of freedom. I'm just kind of wondering how you navigate that because, I believe in that way of working as well. And then, my background is more from like the 9 to 5 kind of, I had a 9 to 5 job. I hated it. And so I'm just kind of thinking of that sort of environment and those bosses and that would think, or don't implement that. Maybe they're worried because they're worried that somebody's going to take advantage, So I'm just kind of interested because you're actively doing this in your business,
Yeah. Everything I talk about around culture and how we work, it's my idealistic view of it, right? The reality is that it takes some people some time to get used to. And it's a great idea. For most people, they see it and they go, "Oh, a great idea. I can just be anywhere and do anything. And all I have to do is do my job and I'm okay." But there is a transition period and there is a learning period. And the reason that we have things like the Culture Navigator and these 12 points is because we have to have something to refer to when we're trying to make decisions. So when someone's considering, am I allowed to go out for lunch with a friend today? You take a look at the 12 principles and as long as it fits within there, then it's okay. You have to do it. But in reality, I talk to a lot of employers about this as well and other companies, and they're very hesitant to do anything even remotely close to that. And I understand that. Well, we're basically trying to change religion. We've had this way of working since the industrial age that has served us well, for slavery until now. But we live in a different world, and we live and work very differently than we did back then. The 9 to 5 was created. It's a man-made thing. It was created by people to stop, slave labor, child labor, and all those things. But, and even though that still goes on today, we've tackled much of it. So we have to start moving towards a different way of working if we're going to keep this business thing sustainable and do it in the long term.
Of course, and I guess if that was man-made, then obviously this new way of working is obviously coming from us as well. And like I just think, why wouldn't you want to come to work like a beautiful building like this? Just like in here, have like the cubicles, and so it just feels a lot more obviously spacious. Just that sense of kind of freedom is here. And as you said, go out, feel something, or meet a friend and then come back, or
Yeah.
whatever. So I definitely it's something that as I'm building my own business, and slowly starting to recruit team members as well, it's like something that I'm very conscious about and just want to encourage other teams as well to adopt it.
It's going to be a tough transition. It's going to be a very long transition. We're talking 20, 30 years realistically, because we're trying to change something that, it feels like religion. It's ingrained in us, that our cells quite literally have a memory from 300 years ago that this is how we work. And we're trying to change that. It's like it's embodied within us as humans. So trying to change that is very difficult. But yeah, I think it's really good with young people, and a lot of the people I work with and I employ young people because of my past and me trying to create a better opportunity for them. So taking young people is a little bit easier because you can mold them. The problem is when they leave or when they move on, they enter a workplace that they're not used to. So, and there is an element of me that feels bad for doing that, and giving them this hope of a better future, and then they go and get a job which is back to the 9 to 5, back to restricted, and that's really difficult, and it's hard for me to do it any other way. But
I think it's really like when you have conversations with them, it's like, because like, you go out into the workplace, whatever, there's not many companies like, do you have like those conversations with them sometimes?
Yeah, so I do
Take them out
I do try and prepare them, I guess, for the outside world.
Yeah, as you can.
Yeah, so I do tell them that this is a very unusual way of working. Not many people do it. It's I believe in it wholeheartedly, and I believe that it's the best way that we can work, and moving into the future. And I also tell them that I understand if you don't get it straight away, it will be a learning process. There will be a transition, but as long as you're willing to believe what I believe, and that you trust me, that you will have a better work-life balance, you will have better well-being, and have a better mental health because of it, then join us and see what it's like.
So you said you got a young team at the moment. Have you hired or like worked in the past those who maybe haven't been able to shape or mold it and more slack?
Funnily enough, I don't hire them because of that, mostly. And that may seem a little, I've got some HR people watching cringing, and employment law people. No, I think that the way we work doesn't attract them anyway.
I was thinking that, like, if you're from the get-go, from like the job ad, and then even when you're posting that, like
People are like, that's weird, I'm not doing that.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and the people that are maybe an older generation, they are experienced people that are either freelancers or contracted. So we'll use them as freelancers or contracted. But the people that I have within the company in-house, whether they're employed, work experience, whatever, they're mostly young people, because I think they're hopeful for a better future, and they're willing to try what we're experimenting with. I think there's a misconception that I've thought of this thing out of thin air and that I'm just running with it. It's all an experiment. And I think we're all, even the most established companies, are either trying, if they're not trying new things, they're not growing. And if they are trying new things, we're all testing things and we're all trying new things all the time. And I think that's where really innovative companies grow, and they're trying those.
Definitely. So if we have a small business owner on like who's watching this, who's listening to this, what would be to me your top tips from a culture kind of perspective on kind of implementing everything that we've spoken about?
So I guess the couple of tips I would give is mainly the shift in mindset. So if you're thinking about a better working future, you're trying to figure out ways to give people a better work-life balance or improve mental health in the workplace or give people a real opportunity at taking back responsibility, then I would start to think about what is wrong with the old world of working, the industrial age world of working, and what's great about the new way of working. The one way that I can describe that is through time judgment. So in the industrial age, we have been taught to judge employees by time, what time they come in, what time they leave, the time at their desk. And you'd be surprised. I used to work in a sales environment where it was cubicle on the phone. And it's shocking actually how many people, David comes in at, you know, 8:30 before his 9 a.m. shift starts, and he stays till 6 past his 5 p.m. shift ended, and actually does hardly any work in that time. He's not productive. There's no, you can't put numbers on the board. Like he's just not a very good performing employee.
If you're not staying there anywhere.
Yeah. Stacey comes in bang on 9. She leaves at 5. She takes her lunch break and she sticks numbers on the board every single month. Who gets the promotion?
Like,
David does. He shouldn't, but David does because he seemed to be working hard. And that's the problem with the way that we work. We're judged based on time, not performance. And that's why so many companies are unproductive. So if we switch that to we're purely focused on results, not by time, then we start to build a culture of responsibility. And that's where I think the problem lies with a lot of employers. Because of this, this yearning to control everything, we've stripped people of taking responsibility to go wrong. So people come in, do their job, and go home, and they don't care enough about the role to go and get the result that you, because you've stripped it of them. So we need to change that as a mindset of leaders and as a culture in a business. So that's really the advice I would give. I would start to think about your employees and the performance of your company as results and not by time. And I promise you'll see a difference in productivity.
it reminds me the time thing of this job I had when in spoons. My boss, my upline, was always there like 8:30, and you'd stay later. But then yeah, we'd take like longer lunch breaks and stuff, and it was like it's just like now kind of got me thinking of like the basic more on before.
I mean, even the people who see this or listen to this, they will start to notice it.
Yeah.
If they're employed or they'd see workplaces or they go into workplaces as part of their role, if they're consultants or that kind of thing, and they will start to notice it. They'll start to notice the guy or gal who looks busy all the time, but actually there's no real tangent outcome from their job. They'll start to notice it.
Interesting. I guess it's a similar process for businesses who want to be more sustainable in terms of it's going to be it's a journey, right? It's a long thing. You know, if the business wants to be more sustainable, are we also talking it's like a 10, 20-year thing for them to get to that point, or is there some more things in the short term that they can do? Because I know we're also huge on that, and that's probably a huge
Yeah,
culture.
yeah. So I think and when we're talking about sustainability, I think a lot of people get confused with climate change. I think they link it directly with climate change, and there is a reason for that. The climate change is quite an urgent problem that needs solving. It's a problem that we can all take action today if we wanted to have an impact on themselves. But sustainability as a whole includes everything. It's everything. It's the processes in the business. It's what you do. It's who you attract. It's how you attract them. And you are looking at essentially making changes in the business so you can do it for longer. That's really the goal here.
Yeah.
Elsewhere, there's companies all over the world that work to 90-day financial goals. So you have a group of board members that are making decisions based on 90 days, not on 30 years. Um, and that can be a problem, because the short-term decisions are having a short-term impact, not a long-term impact. And we need to think about the long-term a little bit more. Now, climate change is the thing. And I think climate change at the minute is the unlock. I think that's the entry point, the thing that's being talked about a lot, that's in the news a lot. But it's also the thing that we can probably make the most impact in the shortest space of time. And our business went carbon neutral, net zero in 6 months. And in all fairness, that sounds like a big win, everyone cheer and clap, but it was one of the easiest things I've done. I'm a small business. I'm not a massive company that needs to consider their supply chain and all these different, concepts. So small businesses can literally do 2 or 3 things to reduce their carbon emissions and then offset the rest. Job done. So it may seem great that we're carbon neutral and we're net zero and all this kind of stuff, but all I did was change my energy supply to renewable, got an electric car. And made some changes of internal policies to say that we will only work with other suppliers that have a net zero strategy. That means our supply chains are protected. That's pretty much it. There's not a lot there. And I think we ended up with something like 0.30 grams of CO2, which, we offset 36 times that anyway every year just by subscribing to things like ecology, which if you don't know what that is, it's a tree planting scheme, essentially. So it's actually a much easier thing to do than people anticipate. And you can make an impact like that if you need to. Right now, today. So I'd encourage anyone to look into it.
So, as you're growing your business and you've predicting more things you'll have to do to continue to stay net zero and
Yeah,
it sounds a lot of scenarios.
Yeah. So one of the things is if you employ people, they add an extra expense, there's extra technology, there's extra use of energy, there's extra, time online, all these little things add up. Devices is a big thing, because there is a lot of technology these days and a lot of it goes to waste. And we've started to get refurbished goods, technology, and seen a statistic actually, which was quite shocking. And it was every time you upgrade your phone, you could have charged your current phone every day for 10 years to make the same emissions. So the amount of carbon that's put into the atmosphere from upgrading your phone is the same as if you charged your current phone every day for 10 years. That's crazy. That is insane. So you think the amount of people that upgrade their phone every year from their contract. And luckily I found this out, I think 2 months before my contract renewed. And I said, my wife said, "Oh, it's time to get a new phone, is it?" And I went, "Not a chance. This time we're sticking with what we got." Because it's fine. I got an iPhone 11 Pro. We're only on an iPhone 13 already. So it's not that far away. And if you really think about it from an Apple sense, is there really that much improvement per model? Yeah. It's a slight improvement in the camera, a new software feature, whatever it might be. So, I said we'll probably upgrade our phone every 3 to 5 years, maybe. We've had it for 2 at the minute, so maybe next year's the year, but I think we could probably push it a little bit longer.
Yeah, it's interesting not to get off topic, but I think, with kind of the upgrades and stuff, I don't know. I've noticed that as well. Like the last 3 years or so. No, it's different, almost different.
No.
I don't even know what I've got now, but yeah. So I'm just trying to communicate that to the rest of my family because my brother just he's at the to keep that in likes to upgrade every year.
Oh, I know people that have 4 phones that they don't use, and they just use the newest one.
Yeah.
What happens to the other? No, if you're going to do something with it, great, but most of the time they just sit there. So yeah, I would consider there's a great I don't know what to call it, like a scheme in Wiltshire. So a client and friend of mine, Natalie, runs a social media agency. She runs the Wiltshire Digital Drive, and they collect laptops and give them to children in schools. So they refurbish that. They're partnered with an IT firm, and they refurbish them and give them out to schools. What a great way to reuse technology. So there's always a use for these old devices and stuff. So if you are upgrading, find a great use for your own device. Don't just stick it back into the system for someone to buy or whatever. Either recycle it really responsibly, give it to someone who really needs it.
From a policy point, you mentioned you choose. Give some views on that. What were those things you tweaked, and do you feel like they've made a big difference?
Yes, we implemented a code of conduct for suppliers. And this is like, if you're going to be a supplier of us, you have to pay your employees fairly. You have to be at least working towards a net zero strategy, or it has to be in the plan. So, it can't just be us who's making the effort. Other people have to do that as well. And if we implement a policy that almost forces that, then we're actually having a better effect as a knock on down the line in the supply chain. So yeah, there's that. There's code of conduct. It's like a modern slavery agreement, that kind of thing. And then there is the net zero strategy link. So they're the two main policies we've implemented that are having an effect at the minute. And it really made us think about who our suppliers are, and are they actually bothered, and are they actually doing something? People might care about the environment, or they might care about a cause. And remember, this isn't just climate change, so they might care about a cause. But if they're not willing to make a change now, we worry that we won't have that supplier in the future, and there's no long-term relationship. So why would we work with them? So actually, it becomes fairly logical when you dig into it a little bit deeper. But yeah, we felt like we needed something to make sure that happens, and that it wasn't just something we said, but something we did.
Yeah. So, speaking of anything you said earlier, and then on to now with this topic. So if, it's just a hypothetical
Sure, yes.
situation, I'm kind of curious. If, so with your team, you kind of work at anywhere.
Mhm.
So if one of your team members was flying all over the shop, different countries and stuff, how, just like thinking about it now, from a sustainable, obviously we're focusing on climate change and stuff, and obviously that's a lot of emissions, like, obviously, for me, I'm just like thinking out loud that can't necessarily control them. Like, how would that work? Do you think?
Yeah, so that's the tough one. We have to balance like health and well-being and sustainable goals in the business. If someone wants to travel for their own health and well-being, and they want to travel around the world, and they want to work from anywhere in the world, we're absolutely fine with that. But we would then give some education and guidance around how you do it responsibly. So how much you pack in, how much are you, who are you flying with? And, can you pay a little bit more to help reduce the impact on the environment if you're flying, depending on which people you're flying with. There are some flights which say, tick this box and we'll offset the emissions for you when you book a flight. So there is that, and there's a few things you can do along the way to reduce your impact as you're doing that. If you're, it depends what country you're going to as well, which, there's obvious things that you can do around, what you're eating and all that kind of stuff. But that goes a little bit deep. So yeah, I would say anyone can go anywhere, but it's just being conscious and mindful about what you're doing and how you're doing it, and be willing to learn a different way of doing it. Being willing to say, I want to go travel to Thailand. I want to work there. And number one, being mindful of the time zone changes, still having the freedom, but being, having education around, but who are you booking flights with? What's the emissions? Is there a way that we can reduce it? Is there a way that we as a company can help to fund it or help to offset the emissions within the business? So there is that. One big thing that I've noticed through my sustainability journey, and especially through climate change and carbon emissions and all those things, is looking at other companies that do it. What some of them try and do, and I can't mention any names, But what some of them try and do is just buy offset. So they plant 1,000 trees and that solves the problem. And it doesn't solve the problem. You can't pump out 1,000,000 tons of CO2 and offset 1,000,000 tons of CO2 by planting trees and expect the problem to go away. So you have to, before anyone starts setting anything or signing up for the ecology, and this was a mistake I made originally. This was me. You have to produce what you're producing. So originally, I came across ecology, and I was like, "Hang on a minute! I can subscribe to this service for £4 an employee per month, and that will allow me to offset a bunch of CO2. It wasn't measured. I didn't know how much I was producing. I didn't know anything. I just thought it's an easy way for me to do something good. So it was an honest thing. But then when I met a client of mine that became almost a sustainability advisor, she said, you can't just offset stuff. You have to reduce it first. Else you're not having any impact. So I had to start thinking of ways to reduce it. And we went, I mean, it wasn't a lot anyway. I think it was about 60 tons, but we reduced it down to next to nothing really, and then offset the rest. And all of a sudden, instead of offsetting 100% of what we were producing, we reduced it by almost everything. And then we were offsetting 36, 38 times what we were producing. And that's where the impact is. And I think what a lot of people do is they try and make out that they're doing something good by throwing money at these schemes, where it's not really doing any favors. Now, there's also a little bit of a problem in that how long does a tree take to grow?
Of course, yeah. So it's the thing, one of the things that I have is like, yeah, and then I think so where I live, they were cutting down all these trees and they were doing it for a reason. Yeah, I emailed them and they explained whatever. They were planting new trees, but in my mind, like, I was thinking that of like, okay, can I use like whatever, but how long does a tree take to grow? Like,
Yeah.
50, 100 years? Like, I don't know, so yeah, it just doesn't make sense in my mind. Like, yeah, so it's a good point.
So there's a lot more we can, which is why it's really important to reduce it, else it's not going to have an effect very quickly. You just offsetting stuff, planting trees. So yes, there's a lot that we can do with planting trees and reducing CO2 emissions, but it's much quicker, much more impactful to reduce what you're already producing.
So that sounds like the approach. So first step is to reduce and then look at offsetting.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Do you have any kind of final thoughts or maybe some final tips on this before we do the
Yeah. So one of the things that we did was I realized that there's an organization called B Lab. They have a certification called B Corp. It's a B Corp certification. You can go through the process. It's a long, very strict process that you go through. And when you get the certificate, it's like the gold standard badge of honor of sustainable business. And they stipulate something. They say that if you're a B Corp, we're using business as a force for good, and that we put people and planet before profit. So, and if you're a B Corp, you have to produce what's called an impact report every year. So you have to produce this report, which basically reports on target, what you've done, what you plan to do to build a sustainable business. And I thought, I don't have to be a B Corp to produce an impact report. And I thought, what a great way to keep us accountable to what we promised to do. So at the start of this year, we published our first impact report. And it was a great way for us to stay accountable and stay tracking what we use and what we have to do.
Is that not online?
Yeah, so it's online. You can go on the website and write it down into the footer and you'll see impact report and you can read it. There's no opt-in or anything. It's publicly available. And it means that anyone at any time can go and see what impact we're having. And it's great because it's not a financial report. There's no profits or earnings or salaries or dividends. That's accounting report. This isn't a financial report. This is what are you doing to make the world better through business? Because you ask someone, why are you in business? The to give the answer and make money, there's nothing in that. I mean, like, there's no real substance to it. Like, what do you want money for? But having an impact report and tracking these things and knowing that we'll make it an impact to the later, that's the thing. And it's really shifted our mindset around what we looked at when we're taking on a client, for example, and the areas that we want to be impacted. Awesome. Danny, thank you so much for the time today. It's an absolute pleasure. Where can people find you online and your kind of sell yourself? Connect with me online. You'll connect with me personally anywhere if you look for at the actual Danny, and as well as on LinkedIn, just linkedin.com/in/the actual Danny. Connect with me there if you've got any questions about sustainability or want to know more about my journey for culture, or you want to take a look at the culture navigator, or kind of think about building your own. I'd love to help you with that.
And the website?
The website's just Danny&Co.
And for more after today's show, be sure to head on over to raisingconsciousness.show to get all of the show notes, transcriptions, videos for each episode, and a hell of a lot more. And if you got value from this episode, found it insightful, or learned a thing or two, please leave a review where you can let everyone know that this show is worth checking out. I appreciate you so much. You'll be hearing from me in the next episode.